Some say he was the spark that ignited the greatest division in Islamic history, a shadowy figure, whispering rebellion against the Caliph. A man born of conspiracy. Others say he never existed at all. Who was Abdullah ibn Saba? A real revolutionary, or a myth created to explain chaos? Today we descend into the fog of the 7th century, where faith, politics and legend intertwine. The name Abdullah ibn Saba first appears in early Islamic sources, often as a Jew from Yemen who converted to Islam during the Caliphate of Ali ibn Abi Talib. According to those accounts, he began spreading dangerous ideas. That Ali was not just a caliph, but the divinely appointed successor of the Prophet Muhammad, even a kind of incarnation of divine wisdom. To traditional Sunni historians, Ibn Saba was the root of early Shia thought, a man who planted the seeds of sectarian division. But here's the mystery. The deeper historians looked, the more the ground beneath his story began to vanish. The main source for Ibn Saba's story is the 9th century historian al-Tabari, who relied heavily on the reports of Saif ibn Omar. But Saif's reliability has long been questioned, even by early Muslim scholars. He was accused of fabricating reports and mixing politics with legend. Modern historians like Bernard Lewis and Madelung ask, if Saif ibn Omar was unreliable, could Ibn Saba himself be a fiction, an invented scapegoat for political conflicts among Muslims? It's a classic historical dilemma. When does a narrative become a myth? And why do societies need that myth in the first place? The era of the First Tribulation, the First Islamic Civil War, was one of confusion and shattered unity. Caliph Uthman was assassinated, Ali rose to power, and suddenly the early Muslim community, once united, was divided by politics, power and loyalty. In this chaos, the story of Ibn Saba became useful. Some blamed him for spreading rebellion against Uthman. Others claimed he inspired the followers of Ali to treat him as more than human. But think about it. Isn't it easier to blame a mysterious agitator than to admit that the divisions were born from real political tensions between tribes, regions, and visions of Islam's future? Whether Ibn Saba existed or not, his myth reflects something deeper, the fear of internal corruption, of ideas that could threaten unity. The figure of Ibn Saba became a mirror, projecting the anxieties of the early nation. For Sunni historians, he explained how deviant doctrines entered Islam. For Shia scholars, he was dismissed as a fabrication, a political tool used to delegitimize their beliefs. The battle over Ibn Saba's existence became symbolic, not about one man, but about the right to define truth. In modern times, the story of Abdullah ibn Saba continues to divide scholars. Some, like Bernard Lewis, argue that even if exaggerated, there must have been some real agitator whose memory survived in distorted form. Others, like Taha Hussein and Murtada al-Askari, argue that he was entirely mythical, a literary device used to shift blame away from real power struggles. Between these extremes lies the historian's burden: how to reconstruct truth when the sources themselves are shaped by politics, theology and fear. Every civilization invents its shadows. The Greeks had Prometheus, the Christians had Judas, and Islam perhaps had Ibn Saba. These figures are not only stories, they are reflections of power, identity, and the eternal struggle to preserve purity. The question, then, is not only did Ibn Saba exist, but why did Muslims need him to exist? Perhaps Ibn Saba was never meant to be a person at all, but an allegory for how ideas evolve, how faith mutates under pressure, how unity fractures when confronted with ambition. Legends often emerge where history refuses to give answers. They fill the silence of uncertainty with meaning. In that sense, Ibn Saba is not just a historical question. He is a psychological truth about humanity's need to explain chaos through a face, a name, a villain. Whether real or imagined, Abdullah ibn Saba remains a ghost-haunting Islamic memory, a reminder that history is written not only by victors, but by storytellers. Maybe he was a man, maybe he was an idea. Maybe he was the first symbol of how truth can be shaped, distorted or destroyed by power. And perhaps the real question isn't who Ibn Saba was, but who we become when we believe in him. If this story challenged what you thought you knew, leave a comment, share your thoughts, and help others discover this forgotten chapter of history. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay with us as we continue uncovering the mysteries that shaped civilizations.